The sun was dropping low over Houston, throwing streaks of gold across the backyard. Smoke curled from the grill. Country music played from a speaker someone propped near the patio, and laughter rolled across the lawn like a summer breeze. That laughter, it was loud, careless, and stinging. Because it was at me. Guess Roger's idea of yard work is staring at the lawnmower until it mows itself. Chad barked, beer in hand, standing way too comfortably by the smoker like he owned the place. People laughed. Real laughs, not the polite kind. And my wife, Lindsay, she giggled too. Not once. Not nervously. But over and over again like she was in on it. Chad, I said, voice steady but low. That's enough. He didn't blink. Just grinned wider. Slapped my shoulder like we were old pals. Come on, man, it's just jokes. You know me. I stepped in, chest tightening. Yeah, I do. And I'm done with the jokes. We all are. That's when Lindsay finally spoke, laughing under her breath, cheeks flushed with awkwardness. Roger, please don't make this a thing. You're being way too sensitive. Sensitive? I repeated, my voice rising slightly as the heat from the grill wasn't the only thing burning me now. You're fine with him making me the clown of every gathering? She gave a forced chuckle, eyes darting around. It's Chad. He teases everyone. No, I said, my gaze locked on hers. He doesn't. He only ever tears into me. And you sit there like it's a stand-up show. Chad shifted beside us, starting to mutter something about it being just guys being guys. But I cut him a glance so sharp he froze mid-sip. You think it's funny I bust my back 40 hours a week, and you two stand here acting like I'm some bum? I asked, voice tightening as more faces turned toward us. Do you know what that feels like? Lindsay's smile dropped. Her voice got clipped. This isn't the time or place. No, I said firmly. Apparently, it's always the time for him. So I'm making it mine now. The music still played, but the energy shifted. The meat on the grill sizzled behind me, but all I could hear was the sound of my own pulse in my ears. Chad tried to shrug it off. It's just a joke, man. You've made that same excuse 4 times this year, I snapped. Jokes don't make people feel this small. And you, I looked at Lindsay. You're supposed to have my back. She crossed her arms. I didn't think it was that serious. Well, I do. There it was. My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't clench. But inside, I was a storm, quiet, gathering, waiting. We stood there, not saying another word. Chad looked at the ground. Lindsay looked at me like I was the one who embarrassed her. Let her. Because this moment, this was the start of something. I'm Roger. I fix broken appliances for a living and come home every night to the same brick house in East Houston. 2 bedrooms, a Ford in the driveway, and a dog named Whiskey who knows when I'm upset before I do. I don't need much. I've never asked for much. But I always believed that loyalty, respect, was supposed to start at home. Turns out, it doesn't. Not always. And that night, standing there by the grill with grease on my shirt and pride leaking out of me like smoke, that's when I realized something's been wrong for a long time. And I'm not swallowing it anymore. The drive home that night felt longer than it was. The windows were down, letting in the humid Houston night, but it didn't help. The heat wasn't outside, it was under my skin. Thick, slow-burning heat that started somewhere deep in my chest and stretched all the way up to my temples. Lindsay sat in the passenger seat scrolling her phone like nothing had happened. No apology. No sorry for not sticking up for you. Nothing. Just thumbs tapping a screen while I drove in silence. I gripped the wheel a little tighter and stared straight ahead. The tires hummed over the asphalt like a low warning in my ears. Are you going to be like this all night? She asked, not even looking up. I'm not going to be anything, I said quietly. She sighed. It's over, Roger. You made your point. Can we please just let it go? Let it go? That's what she always says, like every bruise to my pride was a feather I should just brush off. But they weren't feathers. They were bricks. And tonight wasn't the first one. Not even close. My memory served me well, even when I wished it didn't. A few months ago, dinner at Tony's Seafood Grill. Lindsay and I had met up with Chad and a few others from her work. I remember the table was cramped, the AC too cold. Chad had leaned back in his chair, flicking a peanut from the appetizer dish with a grin. Roger, he said, just loud enough to grab attention. Tell me again how changing out water heaters is your dream job. Laughter. Not the whole table, but enough. I'd smiled politely and shrugged it off, muttering something about honest work. Lindsay had chuckled and sipped her wine. She didn't correct him. didn't defend me. She just said, well, you know Roger, he's simple. Simple. Then bowling night. Midweek, spur of the moment. Chad had tagged along, brought his date, and somehow ended up on our lane. When I missed my third strike in a row, he laughed loud and clapped. Man, I swear you bowl like someone who reads instructions off a cereal box. I let it go then. I even laughed, trying not to ruin the mood. Lindsay had leaned into him and said something I'll never forget. He does read cereal boxes, she joked, biting her straw with a wink. It's adorable. Everyone laughed. I swallowed it. Adorable. Like I was a house bet. Then game night. Just a couple weeks back. Chad pulled a card in Pictionary and shouted, hey, let's see if Roger can draw something besides engine parts. Lindsay laughed first. She didn't even hesitate. And tonight at the barbecue, it all came full circle. Not one isolated jab. Not just a joke. A pattern. A habit. A permission slip she'd been signing over and over again. Back in the car, I glanced over at Lindsay again. She had earbuds in now. Didn't even notice. I pressed my lips together, jaw tight. My voice stayed even. You ever wonder why he only picks on me? She pulled one earbud out. What? I said, why is it only me? The jokes, the jabs, the little performances he puts on? He doesn't do that to anyone else. She shrugged. Because you react. No, I said. Because you let him. That made her sit up. Excuse me. I've seen it. The way you smile at him when he's got me cornered in front of people. The way you laugh when it's me being made into a joke. Her voice went defensive, fast. You're twisting this. Chad teases everyone. You're just taking it personal. Because it is personal, I said. It's been personal since the first time you laughed harder at him than you ever do at me. She opened her mouth to speak, then shut it again. The silence between us wasn't quiet. It pulsed. I turned back to the road. Enough. Enough pretending it didn't bother me. Enough playing the stoic husband while they turned me into a comedy bit. Something shifted in me that night. Not anger. Not bitterness. Clarity. That this wasn't going to fix itself. And I wasn't going to be quiet about it anymore. The porch light was on when we pulled into the driveway. Our house looked the same as always. Low brick, small yard. Porch swing Lindsay wanted but never used. I cut the engine and sat for a moment, fingers loose on the wheel. This ends now. The living room was dim except for the blue flicker of the TV. Some old sitcom rerun played in the background, laugh track echoing off the walls, like it was mocking me. Lindsay curled up on the far end of the couch, a blanket around her legs, and her phone glowing in her hands. She didn't look up as I came in. Hey, I said, keeping my voice calm. We need to talk. She tapped something, gave a soft sigh, then looked up. Roger, I'm tired. Can this wait until tomorrow? No, I said. It really can't. I walked over and sat down, not next to her, not across the room, but on the edge of the coffee table facing her. My knees touched hers. I wanted her full attention. It's about Chad. Lindsay rolled her eyes instantly, tossing her phone onto the cushion beside her. Again with this? Yes, again. Because it's not just tonight. It's been happening for months. He's just messing around, she said, voice already turning icy. That's how he is. He's funny. No, he's cruel. And you let him be. She scoffed. Oh my God, Roger. You're acting like he's bullying you on a playground. You're a grown man. Exactly, I said, my voice tightening. And I'm tired of being treated like a clown in my own marriage. You laugh with him. You encourage him. You don't once tell him to knock it off. And you never once defended me. Lindsay pulled the blanket up higher, like it was armor. You're overreacting. He teases everyone. You just get weirdly sensitive when it's about you. No, I said, firmer now. He only goes after me. He never makes fun of your friends. Never jokes about anyone else's job or how they dress or the kind of car they drive. Just me. She didn't respond. And you? I continued. You smile through it. You've called me simple, adorable, even slow in front of him. Do you even hear yourself? She looked at me for a second, then turned toward the TV. You're making a huge deal out of nothing. This is all in your head. I stood up slowly. No, this is real. It's been real every time I sat through a night feeling like an afterthought. Every time I swallowed the words I wanted to say because I thought maybe you'd notice I wasn't okay. But you didn't. You just laughed. Lindsay picked up the remote, muted the TV, and stared at the screen. What do you want me to say, Roger? She asked flatly. That I'll tell Chad to stop making jokes? That I'll pat you on the back and say poor Roger's feelings got hurt? I want you to admit that it's not okay, I said. That you've been part of it. That you've been treating me like I'm less than, just because Chad makes you laugh and I don't make scenes. A silence settled between us. Heavy. Stale. She finally looked at me. Her face was unreadable, her tone hollow. You really need to grow a thicker skin. That did it. I looked around the room, at the dusty bookshelf, the photos on the mantel, the throw pillows she insisted on keeping even though they were uncomfortable. And it all felt like someone else's house. I didn't belong in that silence. In her shrug, I turned and headed toward the hallway. Where are you going? She asked behind me. To bed, I said. You can keep watching whatever makes you laugh. The next night, I found myself in Terrence's garage, the one place in town where I could breathe without feeling like I had to explain myself. The hum of a small fan buzzed in the corner. The air smelled like motor oil, grass clippings, and old sawdust. Classic Texas garage. Terrence cracked open 2 shiners and slid one my way across the workbench. You look like you've been chewing nails all day. Want to tell me what's going on? I didn't say anything right away. Just took a long sip, let the cold settle into my chest. Then I said it straight. It's Lindsay. And Chad. Terrence leaned back on a stool, arms crossed, eyebrows rising. What did that greaseball do now? Same thing he always does. Uses me for target practice. And Lindsay's sitting front row, clapping along like I'm in a circus. He whistled low, shook his head. Man, I should have decked that dude at that bowling night. I chuckled dryly. You and me both. Terrence leaned forward. You want to go over there? Just the 2 of us? Put the fear of God in him? I looked up at him. Really looked. And for the first time, I realized I didn't want that. Not because I wasn't angry, but because I wasn't that guy. I'm not going to play thug to earn back self-respect, I said. That's not justice. That's just noise. Terrence blinked, caught off guard by how calm I was. So what then? You just going to keep taking it? I shook my head slowly. No, I'm done taking anything. He studied me for a second, then nodded like he finally saw it. The shift. You've got something brewing, he said. What is it? I don't know yet, I admitted. But I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to fight. I'm going to make it undeniable. Undeniable who I am. What I deserve. Terrence tapped his bottle against mine. Now that sounds like the Roger I know. We sat in silence for a while. He finally asked, So what's Lindsay saying about all this? I stared at the beer bottle in my hand. She told me I need thicker skin. Terrence winced. Oof, that's cold. I shrugged. Colder than she's been in a long time. We didn't talk much after that. Just let the quiet stretch out between us like old friends do. The fan kept humming. A dog barked 2 houses down. But for the first time in a long while, my head didn't feel clouded. My chest didn't feel tight. I wasn't broken. I was clearing the rubble. And I wasn't about to rebuild what used to be. The next evening, after work, I walked through the front door carrying the same thermos I always did. Same boots, same scent of machine grease, same keys jangling in my hand. But something about me, something important, wasn't the same. Lindsay was in the kitchen tossing a salad, talking to someone on speakerphone. Her laugh rang out, sharp and free. Oh my God, Chad, you did not say that, she cackled. No, you cannot post that meme. Roger would lose it. I stopped in the doorway. Not out of surprise. Out of clarity. She didn't even flinch when I walked in. Just gave me a distracted wave, kept talking. Okay, I'll send you that thing we talked about. No, not that one. The other thing. She laughed again, then lowered her voice just enough to think I wouldn't hear. He's in now. I'll call you later. The call ended. She turned toward me, wiping her hands on a towel. Hey. I stepped in and set my thermos on the counter. We need to talk. She sighed, grabbing a fork from the drawer. Again? Yeah, again. Her eyes rolled, but she leaned back against the counter, fork tapping the edge of the bowl. All right, let's hear it. I folded my arms and kept my voice even. I don't want Chad around me anymore. Not at parties. Not in this house. Not anywhere near my space. She froze for just a second. Then the laughter came. Small at first, like she thought I was kidding. Oh, come on. I'm serious, I said. He's not welcome. Not anymore. She blinked at me, then smirked. Roger, you don't get to make that kind of demand. He's my friend. He's been in our lives for years. And in those years, he's made a hobby out of tearing me down, I replied. And you've cheered him on. Oh, please, she scoffed. This again. I'm not asking you to choose, I said. calm as a church bell. I'm telling you, if you bring him around, I won't be there. Period. She laughed, louder this time. Are you hearing yourself right now? You sound paranoid. Controlling. It's like you're spinning some fantasy where Chad's your personal villain. I stepped closer, not raising my voice, not changing my tone. No, Lindsay. It's not a fantasy. It's a pattern. And I'm done playing along. Her smile dropped. Just for a moment. Then she crossed her arms. So what? You're drawing lines now. Ultimatums? No, I said. Just boundaries. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. Maybe she didn't. I turned and started to walk toward the hallway. That's dramatic, Roger, she called after me. You always make everything about you. I paused at the edge of the living room, my hand resting on the doorframe. No, I said without looking back. You just don't like when I finally make something about me. That was the moment something in me shifted. It wasn't rage. It wasn't pride. It was refusal. Refusal to be the quiet one. The soft target. The punchline. I wouldn't demand respect anymore. I'd live in a way that left no room for disrespect. From anyone. Especially not from the one who was supposed to stand beside me. The next evening, I didn't drive straight home. I circled the block 3 times before I made the turn. I told myself I just wanted to see. Not start anything, not make a scene. Just see. Chad's house sat at the end of a curved cul-de-sac, its front porch light flickering like it couldn't quite decide if it wanted to be noticed. But something else caught my attention before I even reached the curb. Lindsay's car. Right there in the driveway. Parked like it belonged. I pulled to the shoulder 2 houses down, engine still running. The low thrum under my feet felt too loud. I stared at her car, unmoving. Maybe she was just dropping something off. Maybe she was confronting him herself. Maybe no. I killed the engine. Stepped out. Left the door slightly ajar so it wouldn't click shut. I moved slowly down the sidewalk, my boots finding only the grass. I cut through the neighbor's yard, didn't care. There was a side gate in Chad's fence, halfway latched. I nudged it open with the side of my boot. The backyard was dim. Porch light still off. I followed the edge of the siding, right up to a window that was only half covered by one of those cheap bamboo roll-up shades. The glow inside was warm. A lamp, maybe. I heard laughter. Not loud, not forced, real, quiet laughter. Hers. I stepped closer. My breath slowed. Then I looked. Through the narrow slit in the shade, I saw Lindsay. Sitting on Chad's couch, barefoot. A glass of wine in her hand. Legs tucked under her like this was routine. Chad leaned toward her, close enough that his arm brushed hers. She didn't flinch. She smiled. He said something, and she laughed again, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. Maybe longer. Then she leaned in and kissed him. Not quick. Not unsure. Like she'd done it before. I didn't move. I didn't gasp. Didn't cry out. I pulled out my phone. Slowly. Hands steady. I hit record. No shaking. No zoom. Just proof. That kiss turned into more. Hands on her thigh. Her voice low and breathy. I stopped recording before anything else could burn itself into my brain. I stepped back from the window and took the long way back to my truck, walking the opposite direction like I was just a guy out for a stroll. Only when I closed the door behind me did my jaw finally unclench. The engine started, but I didn't drive right away. I just sat there, staring at the windshield, watching the condensation build on the glass from my breath. Numb and volcanic. That was the only way I could describe it. Like part of me had shut off completely, while another part boiled just beneath the surface, waiting for the next crack to split it wide open. Back home, the house was dark. I didn't turn on the lights. Just walked straight to my desk in the spare room, plugged my phone into the laptop, and transferred the video. No sound. No edits. Just raw, quiet betrayal in perfect definition. I slid a fresh flash drive into the port and saved the file. Then I opened the drawer beneath the desk and pulled out the folder I hadn't touched in 3 years, the one that held our mortgage documents, our marriage license, and everything else we said we'd never need but should probably keep. Right there on top were the divorce forms. Half completed, still blank in all the places I'd once refused to consider filling out. But tonight, my pen didn't hesitate. I filled in the blanks. Box by box. Name by name. Reason by reason. Grounds, adultery. Evidence, enclosed. I didn't cry. Didn't rage. Didn't even text her. I just kept going, page after page, until it was all there. Signed. Dated. Ready. The next morning, I left the flash drive in a manila envelope and slid it across a polished oak desk. Jim Holbrook, my lawyer, was an old friend of Terrence's, a quiet guy with a sharp brain and zero interest in drama. The kind of man who preferred facts to feelings. He opened the envelope, popped the drive into his laptop, and clicked play. For the next 40 seconds, he didn't blink. Then he leaned back in his leather chair, let out a slow whistle, and said, "Well, damn." I sat across from him, hands folded. "It's all I needed, right?" He nodded, still watching the screen. "Roger, this is clean. Tight. Undeniable. No room for argument." He paused, then added, "And it doesn't just work in divorce court. This plays in front of a judge like a hammer. You could walk away with everything." I didn't respond. I wasn't here for vengeance. I just wanted out. Jim turned to me, serious now. "You need to file first. File now. Before she even sees this coming. The fact that you haven't confronted her yet? That's good. Real good. Don't tip your hand." I nodded slowly. "That's the plan." He started typing. "I'll draft it tonight. You'll have the papers by Friday. After that, we serve her. But until then, act normal." That last part sat with me longer than I expected. Act normal. When I walked in that evening, Lindsay was in the living room folding laundry. Candles were lit. A soft acoustic playlist hummed from the Bluetooth speaker. The entire house smelled like lavender and lemon, her peace scent, she used to call it. She looked up and smiled like nothing had changed, like she hadn't spent the previous night pressed up against another man in a dimly lit living room. "Hey, babe," she said sweetly. "I was thinking," she held up a flyer, some cheap trifold brochure for a cabin rental near Lake Livingston. "Maybe we should get away this weekend. Just us. You know, clear our heads. Reconnect a little." I froze, keys still in hand. She kept talking. "It's right by the lake. You used to love that area. They've got a little dock, hammocks, even a fire pit. What do you say?" I studied her face, the excitement in her eyes, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear like she was back in girlfriend mode. It wasn't guilt. It was calculation. She already knew what I didn't, that I suspected something, that something in me had shifted, but she didn't know how much. Not yet. I smiled. Soft. Even. "Yeah," I said, setting my keys on the table. "That sounds nice." She beamed. "Really?" I nodded. "We could use the time." She walked over and wrapped her arms around me. Her head pressed into my chest like we were still something whole. And I let her. My arms moved on instinct, resting around her shoulders. But inside I was gone. My mind was already 100 miles ahead. She wanted a weekend retreat. But I had a deadline. Friday. And I didn't need a fire pit. I needed freedom. Later that night, while she hummed to herself folding towels, I sat in the garage with the door cracked open. The breeze was light. The cicadas were loud. And I stared at my phone, reading the email Jim had just sent. Petition for divorce. Roger Allen Weston versus Lindsay Marie Weston. Filed. Confirmed. Served by Friday. It was in motion, and she didn't have a clue. If this part resonates, give the video a thumbs up. Friday morning, I stood by the fridge, pouring myself a cup of coffee while Lindsay breezed through the kitchen like it was any other day. She was humming. Actually humming. Hair pulled back, wearing one of those soft old t-shirts she used to sleep in when we first moved in together. She hadn't worn it in months. "Want eggs?" she asked cheerfully, already cracking some into a bowl. I shook my head. "Nah, heading out early. Terrence needs help with that basement remodel he's been putting off." She turned, brows raised. "You're actually helping him with that?" "Yup. He's finally pulling the trigger. Wants to turn it into a gym/man cave." She laughed. "Sounds exactly like him." I grabbed my keys and thermos. He offered to put me up for a bit if it runs late some nights. Just in case. She leaned against the counter, smiling. "Oh, should I be worried about losing my husband to drywall and free beer?" I offered her a half smile. "You'll survive." Then I walked out the door. And just like that, I was gone. Terrence's place was 10 minutes from mine, with a cluttered garage, a fridge full of takeout containers, and a couch I'd sunk into more times than I could count. He handed me a spare key without a word. "No questions?" I asked. "Nope," he said, popping open a beer. "I know exactly what this is." We spent the next hour moving boxes around his basement, mostly in silence. I didn't need advice. I didn't want sympathy. I just wanted space, to think, to plan, to breathe in walls that didn't feel like they were closing in. That weekend, while Lindsay thought I was laying insulation or installing light fixtures, I was at Jim's office reviewing statements, checking asset spreadsheets, and finalizing custody arrangements in case things got ugly. I stayed off social media. Didn't answer calls from her unless I absolutely had to. But she kept texting. At first, it was just the usual. Hope the basement isn't a disaster, lol. Dinner's too quiet without you. Remember when we tried painting that one wall and made it worse? Then, her tone shifted. Late Saturday night, I got a photo. Lindsay, lying across our bed, one hand in her hair, oversized hoodie slipping off one shoulder. Missed this. I didn't respond. The next morning, she sent another. A mirror selfie, tight black tank top, lip gloss, that same smile she used when she wanted something. Thinking of a welcome back surprise winking face, I stared at it for a moment. Then locked my phone and set it face down. There was nothing left to say. Terrence noticed I was quieter than usual. He didn't push. One night, after dinner, he handed me a beer and said, "You're doing better than most guys would. You know that?" I gave a dry laugh. What does better even mean? You're not lashing out. Not crumbling. You're just handling it. Quietly. I'm not looking for applause, I said. I'm not giving it, he replied. I'm just saying. I've never seen you this clear-headed. You always used to second-guess stuff. Now, I was done guessing. Monday morning, I got the notification, Lindsay Weston has been served. No reply. No call. No firestorm. Just silence. Which meant one thing. She was about to try something. And I'd be ready. The 4th of July cookout was loud, crowded, and soaked in red, white, and blue. Grills flared. Kids ran through sprinklers. Someone had fireworks lined up on a folding table like trophies. Laughter floated everywhere. Easy, careless laughter. I stood near the cooler with a plastic cup in my hand. Terrence a few steps behind me. Lindsay was across the yard, laughing too hard at something Chad said, her hand resting on his arm like it belonged there. Then I heard my name. Well, if it isn't Roger, Chad called out, raising his voice just enough for people to turn. Didn't expect you to show. Thought you were busy remodeling basements or something. A few chuckles followed. He took another sip and smirked. Guess even the quiet ones like a little attention on Independence Day, huh? I didn't respond. That bothered him. So what is it now, Roger? He continued. You finally loosen up, or are you still sulking over jokes? Lindsay laughed, sharp, nervous. Chad, stop. But she was smiling. I set my cup down on the table. Calm. Deliberate. Terrence muttered. You good? I'm great, I said. I walked straight toward Chad. He saw it coming and grinned wider. Whoa, easy there. You gonna lecture me again? I stopped right in front of him. No. The grin faded. Then what? I grabbed the front of his shirt and pulled him forward. The yard went dead quiet. Chad stumbled, eyes wide. Hey, man. I drove him down into the grass, not with rage, not wild, controlled. The sound of his back hitting the lawn knocked the breath out of him. Gasps erupted around us. Someone shouted my name. Chad scrambled, panic all over his face. Roger, I'm sorry, I was just kidding. Stand up, I said. He shook his head. No, man, please. I gave him one solid punch. Not brutal, not lingering, just enough to end it. He yelped, rolled away, and staggered to his feet, clutching his side. I'm done, he stammered. I swear, I'm done. Good, I said. He didn't wait for another word. He ran, through the gate, down the sidewalk, disappearing into the noise of fireworks popping in the distance. No one moved. Then Lindsay rushed toward me, face twisted with shock and fury. What is wrong with you? She screamed. Have you lost your mind? I looked at her, breathing steady. You don't get to ask me that. You embarrassed me, she yelled. You need to apologize. Right now? Or this marriage is over. I laughed. Not loud. Just once. Too late, I said. She froze. The fireworks cracked overhead, red sparks lighting her face as the truth started to catch up. The yard was frozen. Fireworks crackled overhead, but nobody was looking up anymore. Every eye was on Lindsay and me, the space between us buzzing louder than any sparkler. You humiliated me, Lindsay hissed, grabbing my arm hard enough to leave a mark. You assaulted my friend. You apologize right now, or we're done. I looked down at her hand on my arm. Calmly, I removed it. Say that again, I said. She straightened, chin high, voice sharp and practiced. Apologize. Right now? Or this marriage is over. That's when I laughed. Not bitter. Not angry. Just amused. Her eyes flickered. What is wrong with you? I reached into the cooler beside me and pulled out a thin blue folder, edges worn from use. Terrence sucked in a breath behind me. Roger, it's fine, I said. Lindsay stared at the folder. What is that? Our ending, I replied. I opened it, pulled out my tablet, and tapped the screen. No speeches. No build-up. Just truth. I turned the volume up and held it out so the circle around us could see. The video played. Lindsay's laughter filled the speakers first, soft, intimate. Then Chad's voice. Then the image, her on his couch, wine in hand, leaning into him like she belonged there. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Lindsay lunged for the tablet. Turn that off. I stepped back. The kiss played. Clear. Undeniable. Silence swallowed the yard. Lindsay's face drained of color. Roger, I can explain. I paused the video. Go ahead. She swallowed hard, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It's not what it looks like. Chad and I, we were just talking. You know how things have been between us lately. You pulled away. A murmur rolled through the guests. She reached for my hand. I didn't take it. We can fix this, she said quickly. We should talk privately. This doesn't need to be like this. I shook my head. You already talked. Through actions. She turned to the group, voice trembling but smooth. We've been under a lot of stress. Marriages go through phases. Roger's just upset. Don't, I said quietly. She looked back at me, panic flashing through the cracks. Please, we can work this out. I'll cut Chad off. I swear. I slid the divorce papers from the folder and held them up. Too late. Her breath hitched. You already filed? Yes. Her voice broke. Roger, please. You don't have to do this. I met her eyes, really met them. I already did. She collapsed onto a nearby chair, hands shaking. The crowd slowly began to disperse, whispers trailing behind them like smoke. Terrence stepped beside me. You ready? I nodded. As we walked away, fireworks exploded overhead, bright, loud, final. I didn't look back. The sun was beginning to dip behind the pine trees lining Terrence's backyard, casting long shadows across the lawn. A soft breeze carried the smell of ribs slow cooking on the grill and the steady murmur of easy conversation. 4th of July was behind me. Court was behind me. And Lindsay, well, she was far behind me. I stood by the smoker with tongs in hand, turning over a slab of ribs that hissed and popped under the heat. Terrence sat at the patio table with 2 guys from his work and their wives. Good people, easy laughter, no sharp edges hidden behind fake smiles. You sure you don't miss her? One of the guys joked as he took a long sip from his beer. These ribs are too good. I'd have taken the whole marriage just to keep this cookout. Everyone chuckled. I shrugged. She didn't like my ribs. Said they were too smoky. That earned a round of exaggerated groans. One of the wives leaned in. I heard from Kim. You know, the one who used to do your taxes? She said Lindsay moved back in with her parents. Lives with her sister now. 3 kids packed into one house. She's working double shifts at 2 diners. I didn't flinch. That true? Terrence asked. I nodded once. Yeah, I heard the same. She reached out. Someone else asked. Once, I said. Couple weeks back. Some long message about regrets, confusion, how she didn't know what she had. And I flipped a rib and didn't look up. I left it on read. No one said anything for a beat. Then Terrence raised his beer. To clean slates. But I lifted mine higher. To knowing your worth, I said, and proving it. We clinked glasses. That was it. No bitterness. No revenge fantasy. Just peace. And ribs. As the sky turned orange and purple above us, I sat back in my chair and let it all settle in. I'd lost a wife, but I'd found something better. Myself. That was the end of my story. You know, I keep thinking about how Lindsay stood there, in front of everyone, and tried to lie her way out even after the truth was staring back at her. Like if she smiled hard enough, no one would notice what she'd done. So I gotta ask you, did she do the right thing? Or have you ever seen someone try that same move when they were cornered?